Right, to the moment of truth, the YouTube app. Does the YouTube app work? Today we're going to be revisiting the iPod Touch first generation. The iPod Touch first generation was released almost 16 years ago, back in 2007. This iPod was released just after the first generation iPhone, and it shares a lot of similarities with the first generation iPhone. So in this video we're going to have a closer look at the first generation iPod Touch. We're going to have a look at how it actually holds up in 2023, 16 years later, and what can you actually do with it. As always, if you do enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers and we're aiming for 10 likes on this video, so that would be amazing. Carrying on with the video. So this first generation iPod Touch I paid about £20 on eBay for. It's in pretty rough condition, but that would be expected. It is 16 years old. I was actually quite surprised that it was only £20 for a first generation iPod, because I would imagine a first generation iPhone would go for a lot more. So this iPod Touch just hasn't held its value compared to the iPhone. So we're going to start off this video by having a look at the hardware specifications of this iPod Touch first generation. So it was released back in September of 2007, so almost 16 years ago, which is crazy. So having a closer look at the construction of this device, I was very impressed and surprised when I first got this that it was just this well made. So I believe the back of the iPod Touch is stainless steel with a little plastic notch. I believe that's for maybe antennas, the Wi-Fi, I'm not 100% sure. And then it has what I believe to be an aluminium rim around the screen and around the charging port. And it also has a headphone jack and a power button. So some weird quirks about this iPod Touch first generation is that it doesn't have any volume rockers on the sides, which is weird because how do you adjust the volume of this device? You have to go into the settings, and this device actually doesn't have any real speakers built into it. So if you want to listen to music, you have to use headphones. So just having a look at some more specifications of this device, it was released with the first generation of iOS. So have a look at this. Look at this, it's got the first generation iOS with the sliding lock screen. This iOS was so early that you couldn't even have a home screen wallpaper. And it has the older YouTube app, which is crazy. If you watch to the end of this video, we're going to test to see if that YouTube app still works, because I'm curious. Storage wise, this is the 8GB version of this iPod Touch, but the storage did go all the way up to 32GB. So performance wise, this iPod Touch has 128MB of RAM, which I was surprised with because that's actually not that terrible for a device this old. The display of this device is a little bit outdated. It has a 480p display with a pixel density of 165, which means when you do look at this display, it does look slightly pixelated. And as you can see, the off-axis colors are not the greatest. It does become very faded when you look at it off-axis. Also, the blacks are not that black on this display. As you can see, it's supposed to have a black wallpaper, but it looks more like a gray. But apart from that, I mean, the display is impressive for how old it is. Unlike some later iPod Touches, this doesn't have any cameras on it. There's no camera on the front and there's no camera on the back. So now we're going to change camera angles and we're going to have a closer look at the iPod Touch and see what you can actually do with it in 2023. So let's have a closer look at this iPod Touch. So on the outside, it is actually a very nice design, as I've said previously. It's, I believe, stainless steel that does get scratched quite easily on the back, and then aluminium sort of around the screen and bottom, which is not really seen on many of the other generations of iPod Touch. And it's got the same old square home button that all the old iPhones and iPod Touches used to have. And then there's a plastic cutout, I believe, for an antenna. And as I already said, it doesn't have any volume rockers on the sides, which is very weird. And there's no speaker grill anywhere, as the old style large Apple connector that all the old devices used to have, headphone jack, and a power button. And that's all there is around the iPod. So let's turn this device on using the power button. As you can see, it's got a lock screen wallpaper. The time of day is wrong. And then there's a slide to unlock, which is very nostalgic. So we slide it and it does make a sound. It makes a little clicking sound, but you're probably wondering this doesn't have any speakers. So I believe it has sort of a very basic form of speaker at the top, which makes very basic kind of buzzing sounds. Another example is if we were to go into the Clocks app, set a new alarm, and we're going to have a look at the alarm sounds. So there's only 5 alarm sounds, but they're all very basic sounds. So this is a very good way to demonstrate what sounds this iPod can make without having a proper speaker. So it's like very 8-bit sort of sounds. They all sound very retro. And they're not particularly loud either. So we're going to have a quick look at the software that comes with this device. So I believe this is iOS 1, and it has one screen of apps that come with the device and a search screen. If you scroll down from the top, there is no notification center, and you are unable to swipe up from the bottom. If you double tap on the home button, there is no multitasking. It just takes you back to the home screen, which is quite interesting. So we're gonna have a look at the apps that come with this device. So there's Safari, Calendars, Mail, Contacts, the old YouTube app, Stocks, Maps, Weather, Clock, Calculator, Notes, Settings, the App Store, Music, Video, Photos, and iTunes. So we're going to have a look at Safari. So it is like a very old version of Safari. So if we go on to the home screen, as you can see, you can either put in a web address or use the Google search bar. So we're going to just Google cheese, see how fast this device is. It's connected to Wi-Fi at the moment. And it is doing something. Oh, and yep, it's come up with a web page, or the Google search for cheese, and you're able to scroll down. And the scrolling is surprisingly good for how old this device is. So we've clicked on Google Images, and there's images of cheese, and it actually works fairly well, which I'm surprised with. So Safari works. I've tried using YouTube with this Safari, but it doesn't seem to want to play any YouTube videos. I believe that's down to how old a version the Safari is. You probably need a later version of Safari to do that. So we're going to click the home button, and we're back at the home screen. Calendars, yeah, so it's just an old version of the Calendars app, which is very cool. You can go through the months, the days, and then it's got a list of things you want to add to your calendar. Very cool. Let's go back to the home screen. Let's have a look at Mail. So I've not logged into any Mail, but I presume it would actually work, which is quite cool. You just got to put your email address in, and then we go on to Contacts. I've not got any contacts, but it's fairly similar to iPhones today actually. You just add contacts, that works. Right, to the moment of truth, the YouTube app. Does the YouTube app work? So I tried searching car, look for car videos, and yeah, so when I did try before, what happens is it comes up with cannot connect to YouTube. So Apple have killed off this version of YouTube, this YouTube app, which is very sad. So this doesn't actually work, and you can't really do anything with it. It's just a dead app. So back on the home screen, there's Stocks app. I don't know if this is going to connect to any servers actually. I'd be quite impressed if it does. There's no servers available for this app anymore, which is quite sad. Maps. So this is back when Apple used Google Maps. So I was just having a random look around, and we've put it to satellite view. So this is probably the most demanding version of Maps, and it's actually surprisingly good. So as you can see, it does take a second to load the images up as you scroll out. Let's zoom out a little bit, and as you can see, we can scroll around, and it actually works surprisingly well. There's not really any lag, apart from the only delay is waiting for the images to load up when you zoom in. So if we zoom in a bit to a random location, it can take a second to load the images, but it does work very well. So yeah, I'm very impressed with the Maps app on this iPod Touch. Let's go back to the home screen. The Weather app, does that still work? Yeah, it failed to update. So I think this is back when Apple used Yahoo Weather and Yahoo Stocks. It just doesn't connect to servers anymore, so that you can't really use this app. The Clocks app, this does work. As you can see, it's got time, alarm, stopwatch, timer. This doesn't even look that outdated. So you can scroll to set a timer. You can choose the tone that you want. Yeah, there's only 5 tones, and they're all quite quiet, which is maybe a bit concerning if you're trying to wake yourself up with this alarm. It's not very loud. Moving on, we've got the Calculator app. Yeah, just a very basic calculator app. The Notes app. I presume this is very similar. You can just type notes in. Settings. Okay, so you connect it to the Wi-Fi. It's got a brightness setting. It's even got auto brightness, which is very impressive for the first generation iPod. As you can see, you can change the screen brightness, and I'm actually quite impressed with how bright the screen goes. It's not amazingly bright, but it is visible. I was expecting it to be a bit dimmer, so we can have a look in the general settings. Does it say, so it says we've got 6.9 gigabytes available. Oh, so version, this is actually running iOS 3.1.3. Very basic settings. Oh, you can change the wallpaper as well, so we have a look at what wallpapers come with this. So that's some of the old wallpapers. So this is only a lock screen wallpaper. You can't at this point change the background, the home screen. So let's have a look to see how multitasking works. So we're on the settings app. I'm gonna close it, and we're gonna go back onto Safari. So there should be images of cheese. And yes, wow, that's actually quite impressive. It's saved this in the RAM, so we're able to open this up. So there is actually some basic multitasking on this. And then there's the App Store. I'm not actually signed into an Apple ID, so I'm not sure what's going to come up. I'm going to let this load. Oh, cannot connect to iTunes. So I believe because this is such an old version of iTunes, it's not going to connect to the servers. Yeah, it doesn't want to. And then it's got the music app, which I believe you have to connect this iPod Touch to a computer or a Mac and import songs. It's probably the best way to get music on. You can also do the same for video. You've got to import it from a computer. And it's got the photos. Aren't any photos, it just seems to be a screenshot. So yeah, that's it. That's everything you can do with this iPod Touch first generation that's running iOS 3. I was very impressed with this iPod. I did only pay £20 for it, and it's fully working. And the battery, even though it's such an old device, the battery is held up. So yeah, let me know what you think about this iPod Touch in the comments section. Do you think the value of it will go up as it becomes more of a classic? Because at the moment you can pick these up very cheap. I was quite impressed with this. So hopefully you've enjoyed my overview of the first generation iPod Touch. If you have, be sure to hit that subscribe button and maybe give us a like if you did enjoy this video, and I will see everyone in my next video.